Hi everybody, I'm just waiting for Sarah to join. I'm Karen from Divorce Workshop. Today we have a really good discussion about September. Um, how you're not lazy, you're healing, fatiguing after leaving a toxic relationship. So I can't wait to talk about this with Sarah. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hot. Even
Yes, yes, I have light little clothes on.
yeah, even with the air condition, it's still pretty muggy. So
Yeah. We are in the thick of summer.
we are.
Yeah.
So it's so good. I love this. I was prefacing this with the why we're having this conversation today, because you and I met last week because we are having a little plug here. We're having a workshop in September 24th at 7 p.m. about healing and grief. And I said to you, remember, I said, when I moved here, like to this house here, I was so exhausted from leaving this long-term abusive marriage.
Yeah.
And you said something.
Huh.
Yeah, so go ahead.
What did I say?
You said, well, I have a whole
Oh,
subject or unit about this stuff and
yeah.
how that's normal to when you're leaving a challenging, bully, toxic marriage, how you would be totally exhausted. So,
Yes. This was 2 years ago. This was a really big topic that I was covering in my content and in my client sessions.
mhm,
So it is something that you experience as you are moving along the emotional healing journey.
mhm,
And it is something that's unexpected. So when you encounter it, you think that there's something wrong with you. Excuse
mhm,
me. It feels like you're lazy and you can't get motivated, and everything is heavy, and you don't understand, like, why can't I just like get up and go like I used to? And the reason for that, energetically speaking, emotionally speaking, is because when you've gone through a highly contentious divorce, a highly toxic relationship, and through the separation process and removing yourself from that experience, you have experienced trauma.
mhm,
And when we experience trauma, we hold it at the cellular level inside of our bodies, literally at the physical cell level. But we also hold it inside of our energetic body, or our aura, our energetic field, inside of the chakra system. And it is through the fatigue that we are trying to process those big, heavy emotions that we've experienced from the trauma, the
mhm,
drama, and the chaos. And it is the fatigue happens as a result of our bodies like trying to shut us down so that we can sleep.
mhm,
So rather than fighting it, we need to lean into it and allow for the rest to happen. Because when we are in sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, we are actually repairing at the cellular level. And so
mhm.
it is the
Awesome.
time that we're processing those big emotions. Those experiences, as you know, and as I have shared, we know firsthand how big those events are in our lives and those experiences. And they have a lasting impact that doesn't just, disappear once you've removed yourself from the situation. It takes time to repair, recover, and restore. And
Mhm,
one of the ways we do that is through these deep sleeps. So, what was happening a couple of years ago, like I said, this was an ongoing conversation that I was having with all my clients. And I had remembered on my journey, because we live in hustle culture, because we live in work, busy 24/7, there is this mentality that we carry that if we're resting, we're lazy. If we're resting, we're not good enough. If we're resting, we're getting behind. There is nothing in our culture or society today that talks about the slow movement, that talks about it being okay to take a break. Now, we're starting to move in that direction a little bit. That is becoming somewhat of a conversation, but it's still frowned upon, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to advocate for yourself that you need to take more breaks, especially if you're in an office job or a 9-to-5 type work setting. It's really difficult to say, I'm recovering and I need to take a nap now.
Mm-hmm.
So it is imperative that you give yourself that grace and the allowance, giving yourself permission to lean into that rest. Because what you're doing is so much more than just like closing your eyes. There's a whole process
Mm-hmm.
that's happening inside of you physically that's allowing you to repair the emotional damage, the physical damage, and the psychological and energetic damage that you've experienced.
Yeah, I just want to add too that it's biological and physiological too, right? So your regulatory systems, your immunity system could be down, so you might be even more prone to catching things or getting sick. I also want to mention that, we don't do grief well. So when you lose somebody, your parent or your spouse or whatever, and you have your company gives you 3 days off for and we know that is one of the most major life stressful events. And divorce is, I think, well researched and saying it's the second most stressful event.
Yeah.
And there is no time off, right? Like it's just, continue going on, even though your whole foundation with both the grief loss, like a death loss and a divorce, your foundation has exploded, right? It's all changed. And our bodies and our minds, like you said, are going through so much, but we're not well supported. I agree with you. We're slowly it's slowly changing, but it's slow. So
Yeah.
I love that you say like you really need to lean into it. I think for myself, I didn't really know what was going on though. Like I felt relief. I was like, oh, I felt relief. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so tired.
Yes.
And it's so many things. I mean, it's also probably decision fatigue
Yeah.
and, like I swayed making that decision how I was going to get out for a long time. And then you finally do it and you're like, oh, like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you absolutely. It's like when we go on vacation. We work, 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 and then we usually double up our work just
Mhm.
to go on vacation. And we get on vacation and then we're sick. We aren't motivated. We can't move. It's no different than that. Like you were saying,
Mhm.
physiologically, you have stressed your nervous system out. You've stressed your adrenal system out. Your organs aren't functioning at optimum levels. And there has been so much cortisol released
Mhm.
inside of your body for an extended period of time, especially when you're in that state of waffling, trying to make the
Mhm.
decision when and if and how
Mhm.
to leave, that the cortisol itself has impacted your
Mhm.
body. And it's created its own damage, if you will, to your cognitive functioning, your liver functioning, adrenals, like I said, and all your other organs. And so when you're finally on vacation or have left the toxic relationship or gone through the grief experience or the contentious divorce, when you've moved out of it, then there is this collapsing that happens
Mhm.
because you don't have to keep the adrenaline running
Mhm.
to get through the days. And so what happens is you are literally collapsing on the inside without that constant adrenaline pumping. And so your body is trying to recalibrate. And the way that we support our bodies physiologically in the recalibration, as well as energetically in our chakra system, is to lean into these slow movement, doing walking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our last conversation was around forest bathing,
Mm-hmm.
getting out in nature, and giving yourself permission to sleep more than you ever would.
Mm-hmm.
That means potentially taking multiple naps throughout the day. It means going to bed earlier at night so you can get 8, 9, even 10 hours sleep, because you're supporting your body in repairing itself. That recalibration is really a repairing. You're bringing everything back into homeostasis, back into alignment. And we can't do that when we're like continuing to go after we've had a toxic relationship or contentious divorce or bullying experience. And again, these experiences aren't just necessarily in intimate and romantic relationships. This can be in the workplace. This can be with family, friends, or intimate and romantic. So however you've experienced that contentious, toxic, bullying type of relationship, you're going to experience these effects that Karen and I are talking about today. This extreme fatigue is completely natural and normal. And rather than resisting it and fighting against it, you are going to move through it so much more easily when you give yourself permission to start moving slowly and to start resting more than normal. And the thing is, when you lean into that and you start giving yourself permission to do the rest and repair, you're actually going to move through it faster rather than trying to grind it out and keep going, because that's just prolonging the damage and not allowing the repair cycle to be initiated.
Yeah, I think for me, I had no awareness, right? And so that's why we need to, why we do what we do now, right? Because here I was all by myself with my girls and going, why am I so tired? And I have been living on eggshells for a long time. So I knew my nervous system was hypervigilant, right?
Yeah.
And so that also took a while for me to understand that too, right? That I was always jumpy or more agitated, and probably a little bit more challenging to deal with that first year, right? Because I was if you felt like you were like thin line, is that the right word? Or you felt like you were like I was trying to balance.
On the
Yeah.
razor's edge. Yes.
Yeah. And I felt I was on and so I wish I had known about that. And I wish I had kind of, was more self-caring to myself, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why you and I want to talk about this today, because at least if you're aware of it, then you can listen to your tips that you're giving. So then they, so even if they have the kids, like say they're co-parenting, instead of maybe running around and doing all the errands with the kids because you just can't do it, maybe give them a really easy dinner and just watch a movie with the kids and relax, right? Or something that, because it is hard to balance it all. It's just finding ways, as you said, to make sure that you practice these tips and these, like, lean into this repairing.
Into the recovery and the repairing, and also knowing that you're going to be going against cultural norms. And that's the part where you're giving yourself permission, because it's not forever. It's just for now. This too shall pass. It is a phase, and it may be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. It doesn't matter how long it is. It is a phase. And it's really that awareness piece, like you were just addressing, but then also giving yourself permission to be in recovery, to be in repair, to be in healing. And knowing that you're probably going to get some pushback from those around you, because, as I said, it's not the societal norm, but assuring yourself that this actually is the quickest way through is to allow yourself to be more restful than you typically would. So the awareness is a huge factor. And that's why it was coming up in conversation with all of my clients, because they were all experiencing this and wondering, what is wrong with me? And that's exactly why this conversation is so important, because there isn't anything wrong with you. You have experienced trauma, however you experienced that. And whether it's, you know, big T trauma or little T trauma, as I think I've addressed in one of our other conversations, little T trauma is like repeated events that occur over a long period of time. Big T trauma is one cataclysmic event where you are in absolute devastation. So typically for my clients and myself, it's little T trauma.
Yeah, complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes, CPTSD, correct.
Yeah.
And so learning what that actually means and entering into the conversations, listening to the conversations like you and I are having, that is a really key part of the recovery process, is starting to educate yourself on what is happening to you physiologically, energetically, emotionally, mentally, on all levels.
I think there's also this assumption that once you decide to leave and you get out of that relationship, okay, that's enough courage itself, right? It's very hard. And you think, okay, once you're out, everything's gonna be and it's not true, right? Like, it is to a good point. Like, yeah, did I ever feel a lot of relief?
Yes.
Finally being able to somehow navigate out of that toxic marriage, but it came with a lot, like, as you said, like I had no idea that after I'd be feeling this way after, right? So I think that's another awareness piece. I want people that are exploring divorce or just about to divorce or in the acute phases that, yeah, for some of us, once you made that decision, when you go in, like when you finally physically separate, that you can still, you know, have issues, right? Or
there is more to the journey than meets the eye. It's not, when you're out, that is just the first step. There are so many other things. This is why I call it recovery and a healing journey, because you are going on a process of recovering your mental faculties, your physical faculties, your emotional faculties. You're really recovering from that CPTSD and that trauma. And in order to do that, it has to be understood that this is more than just I've left and now I'm fine. There's a whole other experience that you're going to have and that you're going to move through after you've gone through the contentious divorce or left the toxic relationship.
Yeah. And that's actually, we can talk about this another time, but for some, including myself, when you're dealing with post-divorce abuse, and so how we regulate that, right? Because they'll come up and go away and come up, or they keep at you, right? So that's another discussion. But, you know, for some of these toxic relationships, you know, it can continue even after you've left. But however, you know, it's still better to have been out of that. Like, I feel better being out of it than when I was in it. I want to reassure everybody about that, right?
Yes. This is a different process that you're going through. When you've left, that is step one. But step 2 through 100 is that feeling better and better and better day by day by day. And that is part of the journey. That part of understanding what the fatigue is about, understanding what the cortisol has done to your physiological body, understanding what the process is for you to move through those bigger emotions, understanding that there is underlying emotions, that it's not just like we said, you walk out and you're done. It does not work that way. There's layers and layers and layers to this experience that you're not even aware of. And one of the things that I talk about a lot with my clients, even after we've worked together, is the layers you're always going to be surprised by
Mm-hmm.
another layer that appears that you're going to be, I'm pulling back the onion here, the layer of the onion. There's always going to be another layer that you're going to be processing. And again, that is part of the journey, and that's okay. And having awareness and education around that is super, super imperative, because when you understand that that is how it goes, then you're able to stay in the game, if you will. You're able to continue to support yourself through the healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't think that it's one and done. You don't think that, nothing is happening here, that I'm fine and everything's okay and life is going to be back to normal. There is no going back to the way things used to be. You have fundamentally changed at the cellular level, at the cognitive level, at the emotional level. CPTSD and trauma, contentious divorces, bullying, and toxic relationships fundamentally change you.
Yeah.
And that is the nature of those relationships. Starting to be educated that this is happening for you, not to you, that there is a journey to be going on, and that fatigue is part of that journey, because there's a greater purpose to all of this happening. It is transformational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And understanding that,
Yeah.
right, can help you handle what you're going through,
Yeah.
right? Because the thing that happens a lot though is sometimes we can fall in, once we've been in these, even friendships, right? I've had friends that have been decently toxic, right? And they take a lot of energy from you, right?
Yeah.
But even having, I forgot what I was going to say, but sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
So we were talking about processing and allowing for that experience to occur, and being educated about it, because you're not always aware. Yeah.
I want to mention though, another a tip that I had too, that I do tell grievers of non-death loss as well as is try restorative yoga.
Yeah.
Try the yoga movement. You can get them online on YouTube. Try movement with when you're going through the trauma. The body likes to move. So dance, yoga, restorative yoga, stuff that, I was doing a webinar yesterday and they were talking about dance and
Yeah.
how moving the body,
Moving.
can just moving, right? So I think that's why we liked forest bathing last time, because you're moving. But I want to give another tip with trauma. They really do like yoga. So you can try yoga. Restorative would probably be the best when you're coming out of a toxic
You
relationship.
want nice, slow movement.
Mm-hmm.
So the philosophy behind yoga or movement, qigong is another one, that's the one that I share with my clients. It's that slow movement where you're being mindful and intentional. But the premise behind moving your body when you've experienced trauma is because you're creating an energetic release. You're helping move that
Mm-hmm.
energy through you, and you're expelling it or expressing it rather than holding onto it and staying contracted. So yes, restorative yoga or flow yoga, like the long poses
Mm-hmm.
and stretches, getting into breath work. I think we maybe talked about this as well, that learning to do that diaphragmatic breathing, that deep belly breathing, that's another thing that I teach my clients as
Mm-hmm.
well, because that is super important for being able to move the energy up and out, expelling it, expressing it, as I'm saying. It allows it to be released from your body. And so these are things that, again, we need to be aware of, and we need to acknowledge that this is going to be part of the journey now. That slow movement, those stretches, those ways of being, dancing is phenomenal as well. Anything that's going to allow you to flow and move your limbs and be able to push that energy out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really, that's what the core of what you're doing is, you're pushing that energy out.
I want to also mention with the breathing, it's a practice. So you can't just do it once and go, okay,
Yeah.
so good practice, a good train of thought is do it in the morning, um, and do it at night for sure.
Yeah.
I do it at night. And even during the day, you can do it if you can do it, it's a practice though. It's not just once. You have to keep doing it. I always tell my clients, like, keep practicing it, because the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, the more it'll just come more naturally. And then you'll start feeling the effects, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
there's a lot of research about the benefits of breathing, the breathing techniques.
Huge benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And again, also with sleep, so many studies now that they're
Mm-hmm.
showing how restorative sleep is, particularly when you're emotionally healing and in recovery, emotional recovery. All of these things that we're talking about today are practices.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we talk about, the journey. This becomes your new norm. The way that you operated before is no longer going to work for you. You will continue to try and hustle and grind and push through, but you're going to be flattened. Your body is going to shut you down. You're going to get a really bad cold. You're going to get sick. You're going to find yourself in bed. You're going to have like extreme fatigue. And this is because your body's telling you the way that you used to do things is no longer going to work. And it's time to adopt new ways of being, because things have fundamentally changed at the physiological level, at the mental and emotional and energetic level. So it's really coming into acknowledging that there has been a shift for you, and that you will begin to do things differently. And so, yes, these techniques become a daily practice, because they're supporting that healing. They're supporting that it gets to be better and better and better. I get to feel better and better and better. And it's also iterative. So it like stacks on top of each other. Once you start doing it regularly, it builds up, and you do have this, like, I do feel much better than I did a week ago, 10 days ago, a month ago. And that kind of like it's like positive reinforcement. You want to do the practice or continue the practice because you are feeling so much better than you did before. Yeah.
And we can promise you, because we've both been there, that it does work.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
like it does truly work. It just, you got to just start doing it, right?
We practice what we preach. And like you said earlier, this is why we have these conversations. This is why we do the work we do in the world today. Because we understand how profound this work is. And when you have the awareness and the education around bullying, toxic relationships, narcissistic abuse, emotional and mental abuse, when you have the education and awareness around that, you are able to change the trajectory of your life. You will change all of your relationships. You will improve your health mentally and physically. And you will, as I was saying, have a new lease on life. Your life changes at the foundational level.
Yeah. Well, this was a great discussion. I know, as usual, we have these great conversations. Do we want to say anything about September 24th today? Do we want to put a plug in about our upcoming workshop in September?
Absolutely, yes. Karen and I are going to dive deeper into all of these conversations that we've been having on these IG Lives. Coming up on September 24th, this is going to be a online workshop that we're co-hosting. And yeah, we're going to have more information available for you come end of July, early August. We'll have a wait list so we can start getting you signed up for that, and then we'll provide more details for you as we move closer into September.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It's going to be really good for everybody, including ourselves even, right?
Like, I love always. That's the beautiful thing about having these conversations, hosting workshops. even in client sessions, you're still continuing to learn, and you're discovering new tidbits of information. You're learning about enhanced ways of doing the things that you're teaching. And yeah, there's so many benefits for both the student and the teacher,
And
if
the
you
teacher.
will. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
just before we go, do we have any questions for anybody? Otherwise, we'll
Yeah,
start
if
wrapping up.
there's anything that you would like to ask Karen or I about fatigue on the emotional recovery journey, please drop it in the chat. And I'm not seeing any questions right now, so leave it in the chat if you're catching the replay, and we will come back and answer you. And again, we thank you for taking this time today to share with us and to explore more awareness and more education on the emotional recovery journey post divorce, post toxic relationship, post grief journey, whatever that looks like for you.
That's great. All right. So you can catch Sarah, you want to give your webpage quick?
Sure. You can find me at Illuminated Joy here on Instagram, and the website is illuminatedjoy.com.
All right. And I'm Karen at Divorce Workshop. So we'll be back probably next month for another great, insightful discussion. Otherwise, everyone take care. Bye, Sarah.
Ciao.